Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami basketball channel. My name is Amir, and for today's video, I have my friend Neil joining me today. What's up, Neil?
How you doing, man? Excited to be here.
I'm doing good. Long time no talk.
It's a dead zone in the NBA, but I know you always got something Heat related to talk about, so I'm excited to see what you got in the works.
Of course, this is a Miami Heat channel, so of course we're gonna talk about the Miami Heat, and of course I'm going to talk about every Miami Heat fan's favorite subject, especially on YouTube, Damian Lillard. So I want to talk about some updates, the latest that we've heard. So I had a short video this week that shared a little bit about the latest on Damian Lillard, but I just wanted to get your perspective on the Damian Lillard trade sweepstakes and scenario. So before we do get into today's episode, I just want to again continue to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel. It really means a lot. And I'm on my path to 300 subscribers. So if you guys can subscribe to the channel, if you could like, comment, and share this video, it'll definitely help out with the YouTube algorithm. So I appreciate the support. And so for today's episode, Neil, so before we get into it, I didn't give Neil the topic beforehand. I just said it's going to be Miami Heat related and possibly on Damian Lillard. So, but I do have a topic I want to bring up. But first, just overall, I want to get your thoughts on just the whole Damian Lillard saga. Like, and how close have you been following? Like, have you been following Bleacher Report and ESPN and my videos just to get the latest, like weekly or every 2 weeks? You know, it's been something around Joe Cronin and just something about like Damian Lillard just trolling folks. I guess that was more like 4 or 5 weeks ago playing Miami, you know, Will Smith in the club. So like there's just been all these like reports that have been coming out throughout the summer. Like, so how closely have you been following?
I think the last time I really was following it was around Summer League. I might be mistaken, but Joe Cronin was saying something about how they were going to take their time in deciding what they want to do with Dame because he's under contract for several years. There's no incentive to move him right away. So with that in mind, they probably want to use their leverage with him under contract for several years to kind of take a lay of the land, see how he looks with Scoot, and then make a decision moving forward. And it doesn't seem like the offers that the Blazers have been getting better. So there's no reason for them to pull the trigger right now, just kind of see how things play out. But I haven't really been following it most recently in the last like month, I would say.
Okay. What are your thoughts on just like Portland's perspective of just kind of holding out so far? And you mentioned leverage. I think there's leverage from all sorts of directions. The Heat have some, Portland has some, Dame has some, but just what are your thoughts on like the type of leverage that Portland has?
Yeah, they paid Dame in spades last offseason. He's got a long contract. It's obvious that Portland is not going to be a team that's going to contend for a top 4 seed in the West. It seems like their upper bound in terms of ceiling would be a 6 seed, like avoiding the play-in. But the West is just a gauntlet. There's so many good teams there. So it makes sense for them to try and trade away their asset that they have, get as many young players as they can, and then start building towards a future that's 3 to 5 years from now. But the thing is, when you have a dollar and you're trying to get change back in the form of young talent, you're not going to get equal value. So if they're not getting anything that's even mildly appetizing, then I don't think there's a reason to pull the trigger prematurely when you have him under contract for so long. And based on what we've seen from Dame throughout his career, as soon as the season starts and you roll the ball out there, you're going to get an elite player. And that's exactly why the Heat want him, because the Heat know what's at stake if they get Dame into the mix. But I just think we're kind of in a holding pattern where I don't expect anything to happen, but the NBA always seems to surprise us somehow. We got Pat Riley on one end of the negotiating table, and he always seems to figure out a way to orchestrate things in his favor. So with that door slightly open, I would not be shocked if something happened. But my overall impression is I think we're just in a holding pattern, kind of wait and see. I think it's important in his best interest to at least see what they have with Dame and Scoot on the floor, see how the season goes. If it's a complete disaster, then you can exercise him around the trade deadline when offers might get better. But if they're not blown away with any offers and you haven't even seen how your new backcourt looks, I don't think it makes sense to trade him anytime soon.
Maybe that's a horrible take. So Thank you for having an opposing opinion. That makes these types of episodes more entertaining. So let
Well, we
me.
need to have different perspectives if we're going to have a conversation.
Well, we could have the same perspective. It's just not as entertaining, I guess. But you're not a Heat fan, so it kind of makes sense that you haven't been following as closely as I have, or having that opinion that you think it makes sense for them to hold out, I guess, and just bring him back to camp, and then of course play him during the regular season. So I think all of that is ludicrous for multiple reasons, and I'll tell you why. But I guess the leverage you made it sound like is that they have the player and he's under contract long term. So that's like the only leverage Portland has. So the leverage I think that Miami has is that Dame doesn't want to play and demanded a trade for the first time in his career and said he only wants to play for Miami. So I feel like Miami has more leverage than Portland, slightly, not drastically, but they have enough because when was the last time a superstar demanded a trade and did not get traded? It could be a following season. Like there's been times like Jimmy Butler apparently asked to get traded and went to the T Wolves, and he hated the T Wolves. And we know that whole story about him, playing with the second team or third team and beating the starters and talking shit on Cat and everybody else and forcing his way out of there. And so we know it's like possible where a star doesn't get traded immediately, but they will. Like Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Harden, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, every single person in the last 10, 20 years has asked for a trade has gotten it. So it is in the best interest of Portland to trade him at that point, because why would you want to bring back someone who doesn't want to play? So that's one issue. The second issue is you drafted his replacement. Like, why do you want to play him? He's an undersized guard, and you drafted a strong, obviously buff, undersized guard in Scoot. Like, why? And you have Anthony Simons, who's also a kind of undersized guard. He's 6'5", I believe, or 6'4". You have Sharp, who's also like a guard. So like, to your point of testing the waters, see what it looks like, doesn't make sense because there's redundancy there, and there's redundancy in the Miami Heat, their offer, because they're trying to trade Tyler Hero, and they say we don't need Hero, we have Scoot, we have Sharp, we have Simons, right? So I don't think that makes sense to bring Dame back, because that's going to be redundant. It's going to stunt their growth. Basically, at this point, you got to give Patrick Mahomes, you got to give Aaron Rodgers, you got to give whoever their shot. And it's a little different because he's not playing like behind Dame for the past few years or so. Like, this guy is already the real deal, and you got to play him now. So you got to let Dame go, finish out his career. Like the Niners
most
did
important
that
thing,
young. The Niners did that. It's not the best example, but like, this guy is like ready to play now, so I don't think it makes sense to bring him back. And also another thing before you come in, there's no other trades that have been offered for Dame. Like, that's the thing. Why? Because he said, I only want to play for the Heat. They sent out a memo saying you can't say you won't show up to other teams, and can't say the only team you want to play for is Miami. So he's like, all right, that's fine. That's why he said, I'll show up. I'll show up to any team, or even Portland. Like, to your point, he's loyal, but he said, I'll show up if I have to, but he doesn't want to. Like, he's been loyal for 11 years and he demanded a trade. So like, he's already put his foot down. So I don't think it makes any sense, like, why Portland wouldn't trade him this season. Like, maybe they can hold on for some reason, but also, like, what's if you bring him back and he twists his ankle or tears his ACL in the first month or second month or the third month, because the trade deadline is not till February, right? So you could play like 3 months. So why risk that? And he's 33, right? So that's one issue too, is bringing him back. Is he tears his ACL, you get nothing. He's done. Like, you're not going to get anything for him. So you might as well get 3-4 first round picks. You might as well get Kyle Lowry expiring. You might as well get Jovic and Hawkes, our two young players. You might as well get something because of all those things. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on those counters, I guess, or the reasons why I gave you, and why?
Well, I think the most important thing you said was the Heat aren't really bidding against anybody else, so that's going to keep their price low. So they're not going to give up the world to get this guy, because they know that they're not competing with anybody else. So that is a very, very important point to understand here. And as long as the Heat's offers low, then Portland's going to be stuck where they're kind of in a staring contest with Dame to see who has leverage. And certain GMs have been able to perform that staring contest well, like Daryl Morey. Other GMs have gotten impatient and just taken what they've gotten. So I don't really know where we stand when it comes to Cronin, but there are a lot of different outcomes when it comes to how they want to play it, in terms of, are they just going to be content with benching Dame like the Sixers did with Simmons, or are they going to get impatient and just take this offer from the Heat that isn't getting substantially better over time?
Yeah, because I don't think another team's going to come in because he said I only want to play for Miami. And also, the leverage that they have is just the player and the contract, but the contract sucks technically if you think about it. Like, we don't know how he's going to age, and he's starting to show some sort of injury pattern slightly. Like anybody, when they get to their 30s in the NBA, starts to wear down a little bit. They kind of shut him down last year, so like because they're tanking for Scoot. Like he missed 20 something games, but he didn't play the last 10 because they're like, let's tank. So, but he did miss some games with some injuries, over the past couple of seasons. So the other big thing too is like a lot of other teams aren't going to say, I'm going to trade all I got for Dame, who might not even put me over the top, because he's going to make, he's owed four years, 210 more million, 4 years, 210. So at age 37, he's going to be making $67 million. Like we saw the Jaylen Brown contract. We're like, oh, how the fuck is that guy making that much? He's a scrub. He's not a scrub, obviously. I just hate the Celtics because we all hate the Celtics. You should hate the Celtics if you're a Heat fan, but he's a 1B, right? 1B on that team. Maybe, I mean, technically second. He's Robin, and he's not even that great. Like he's very good, but he's like not even top 20 in my opinion. He's like 25, which is not bad, but he's the highest paid player. We all know the reason. The cap goes up. He's the guy who got the most recent offer. Like the next person is going to be the most paid. I mean, I've said on the channel before that Mike Conley freaking 5 years ago made $170 million, and he was the most paid 5 years ago, which was insane, right? And like he was averaging like below 20 points a game. So like that doesn't mean too much for me, but at least Jaylen Brown is going to be getting like 60 something, $70 million, like at age 31 and 32 season, not 37, right? So that's the thing. Like there's no guarantee that Dame's going to stay healthy over these like 4 years. He's 33. You know what I mean? So like he's going to slow down. Like his game could age well because he doesn't depend on athleticism. He's not Russ. He's not Westbrook. I was going to say Westbrook. He's not Russ. He's not Rose. He's not Morant. So he doesn't need to depend on that. He could shoot from freaking half court. So I think his game could age pretty well, but you just never know. I mean, look at Chris Paul, one of the best and only like guys that are like at that age that was still performing super well compared to like the Kyle Lowrys, the Goran Dragic's, who are like, former all-stars at one point, good point guards in the league. But once they got to like age 35, they fell off a cliff. Like Chris Paul fell off a cliff only the last year or so because of his hamstrings, right? Like if he was managed to still be healthy, like he'd still be pretty impressive for a 38-year-old point guard, right? Not LeBron impressive, but you never know. So that's like a big issue. So anyway, you mentioned one thing I want to transition real quick is you mentioned Daryl Morey, so the Harden scenario. So Harden obviously was talking crap on Morey, saying he's a liar, he doesn't want to play for him, all that stuff. And in my last video, I was saying, like, why is Dame the person that got made an example of? Like, Harden's pushed his way to multiple teams, only mentioning one team. He only wanted the Nets. He only wanted the Sixers. He got there. Now he said only the Clippers. And then he started talking crap on his GM, basically saying, I'm not going to show up to camp. Like, because obviously he's like, I hate my GM. You're a liar. He burned and scorched the earth, right? Burned all the bridges on earth, basically, at this point. So that basically like is saying, I'm not going to show up to camp. So he finally, the league, I was so pissed. I'm like, why is he getting away with this? And the league finally said they're going to investigate this crap. But anyway, the only thing I could think of is if Dame wants to expedite this and make Portland make the move sooner than later before camp starts, he needs to pull a Harden. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think like Dame has all the leverage in the world now? Like if he makes a stink, do you think that's going to move the needle and push it?
Well, it's going to depend on the kind of GM that Cronin is, because if he's a Daryl Morey type, that won't impact him too much. Even the Nets owner, Joe Tsai, he was fairly patient with the trade demands from Kyrie and Durant until he got something that he liked, and he got a king's ransom for Durant. So it really is going to depend on what Cronin is. And since we don't have any kind of data or history on how he has handled superstars, it's really hard to make a prediction on whether he would just kind of cave. He's saying the right things in terms of how he's going to be patient. He understands that there's a lengthy contract that he has for his asset. But when push comes to shove and no one's giving him offers and the Blazers are 8-19 and 13th place in the West, maybe he changes his mind. It's hard to predict how someone we don't know or have no data on is going to act in the future. So I think that actually makes it kind of exciting because there's a lot of different outcomes that are possible here.
True. But also those other players didn't mention one team. Like KD said Heat, Suns, or whoever. Kyrie didn't really mention a team. If we go back to even Mitchell Gobert, who demanded trades, they never said where they wanted to go because Mitchell obviously didn't want to go to Cleveland. I don't think he requested Cleveland. So that's one difference. But, I mean, good point. And the other point is that if they go 8-20 to start the season off, then, yeah, maybe Cronin could be like, okay, like, it's not really working out. Like, if they bring Dame back, which I think is stupid as hell and it won't happen. But if they decide to bring him back and they get to that point, then they're like, yeah, maybe we'll start listening to the Heat again because no other team's going to make an offer. In my opinion, I don't think any other team is going to come and make an offer because they don't want to go over the second apron and go over the cap, like, because of his contract. Like, the teams that are contenders can't take him on, honestly, because, like, the teams that would, the Celtics, a Sixers team, I guess it depends on the Harden scenario, but maybe the Sixers, but he doesn't want to play for the Sixers. Like, any other team, I don't know where he would go, but, like, they already have multiple players making so much money. Like, he would never go to the Warriors, but Draymond just got paid. Steph's getting paid. Clay, he's a free agent, but you know what I mean? Like, each team that is a contender already has 2 to 3 guys on max deals. I mean, the Heat have 3 guys on max deals, including Tyler Hero's max deal is going to go into effect this next season. You know, he's going to be making $25 million a year. You know what I mean? So, like, it's just like, it doesn't fit on other teams' books. Like, I don't see another team coming in saying we want Dame. So the thing that makes no sense to me, and I'll put this back in your court, is like, why the F would you want Dame? For all the other reasons I mentioned, redundancy, like taking minutes away from Scoot, like, embrace the rebuild. Like, you already have good players on the team right now. Like, you're not starting from 0. You're starting from like 3 out of 10, right? On terms of a rebuild, if 10 is going to be like championship contender, like, you're at 3 or 4 right now, right? If 10 is a championship contender, like, you're at a 4 right now or 3. Like, don't you want to tank? Don't you want to tank again? Like, why would you want Dame to play who can get you some wins? We know Dame can get you some wins, unlike Harden, who we just talked about a few minutes ago, right? Like, Dame has been to a Western Conference Finals in the West 2019, right? Harden has too, but, like, not with the Sixers. So why would you want to win when you have a team that's going to suck? They were a play-in team with – they didn't even make the play-in. Did they make the play-in? No. Portland wasn't even a play-in team with Damian last year. What do you think is going to happen now when they're going to be integrating younger players? They're not going to be a play-in team again either. And so why would you want to get the 10th seed or the 9th seed and be a play-in team with Dame when you could just let them play like the Rockets have, like the Thunder have, right, with their young teams? Tank. Don't have Dame and lose, and that way get another number 1, 2, 3, 4 pick and get like a big, then draft the next, you know, big, like, or wing player that they need, right? So what are your thoughts?
I would say it's a combination of a couple things. First, they might not be blown away by this offer that they're getting from the Heat. The Heat have no incentive to make a great offer because, as we've discussed, there isn't anybody else they're bidding against. So they have no incentive to give them a Godfather offer that they have to accept. So Portland might not be super blown away by the offers. And then also there's an indication that they want to see what they have and take it how it goes. There's like no reason to kind of agree now. That's what they're not losing a whole lot in terms of potential offers by just keeping him like in limbo right now. So I think it's the combination of those 2 things.
Yeah, but don't you agree with like everything I said to get you back on the dark side?
Well, in terms of tank for the sake of tanking, I think there is value to that. So you can kind of just let Scoot go, let Shaedon Sharpe go, and then let Anthony Simmons go. But if you're not getting something, like if you're getting 50 cents on the dollar, that's just bad GM work. So they can afford to wait, see if the offer gets better over time, which it's unlikely to. So we're just kind of in a staring contest right now.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse. And Dame can change his mind and literally say, I'm not showing up. Also, like, I'm just going to sit out and hold out. So, like, why not trade me now? Also, something I didn't bring up in this episode. What does it say to Scoot and other young players and to that generation of Portland players and future Portland players when you're not going to basically fulfill the wishes of your ultimately best player of your franchise, right? Arguably one of the best players of your franchise, been there for almost 11, 12 seasons. What is that going to say about them when they're like just going to do him that wrong and that dirty? What's Scoot going to do if literally he gets to his after his rookie scale contract in 4 years or whatever it is, right? Rookie scale contracts are usually 4 years, right? And so year 5, like, is he going to sign that extension and max deal, rookie max, like Bam did and Hero did with the Heat? Do you think he's going to do that when he's like, oh, like Portland did Dame dirty? Like, how can I trust them to say that they're going to continue this rebuild, add assets to the team, try to like trade for superstars if applicable? Obviously, not many superstars are always on the market, but you know what I'm saying. If they did him wrong, why would you trust them? It's a small market team. He was going to like go to LA. They're going to say, hey, we'll pay you that, and we'll like you'll be the star in our team. We're going to like build around you, like, or not build, but add different players and trade for stars to play along with you. Like, what do you think about that perspective of like doing your star dirty who was loyal to you? Like, what about reputation and for the franchise?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. There's the way that you were talking about, but it's also if you do Dame a solid and you give him what he wants, I don't necessarily think that's going to translate into goodwill for the Blazers organization. I think a good test case would be like the Nets, who traded Kevin Durant to his preferred destination. Does that mean in the future more players are going to want to go to the Nets or stay with the Nets because they helped Durant get where he wanted to go? I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. So it's tough to say. It's tough to say. I think a player is going to act in their best interest and utilize their agency to do whatever they want to do. If Scoot wants to leave Portland, I don't think the way they treated Dame is going to impact his decision significantly one way or another, because this isn't an egregious sort of violation of Dame yet. I don't think it's an egregious violation one way or another. And like 4 years from now, this story with Dame won't resonate quite as much. And I don't think it's going to give Portland a lot of goodwill they can leverage if they give Dame what he wants in 4 years. I just think if Scoot wanted to go to New York when he's a free agent after his rookie scale contract, he was going to go to New York anyway. That's kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Portland's never won a championship before, right?
They won one in the 70s when Bill Walton
was... Oh, Bill Walton. Okay,
yeah.
So they have one. Okay.
But not since we've been around, so.
Okay. Yeah, so they're not a poverty franchise then. They're not a great franchise.
I wouldn't call Portland a poverty franchise. I think up until the past maybe like 2 or 3 years, they were a consistent playoff team. They win around in the playoffs consistently. Before they had Dame, they had a solid team. Even back to like the Jailblazers era, they had like Clyde Drexler. They've always consistently been in the mix, but they haven't been able to get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, remember Game 7
against the Lakers?
Keel was goddamn alley-oop. Yep, that was the closest to
that was pretty bad.
Was Bonzi on that team?
Yeah, Bonzi Wells, like Rasheed Wallace, Scottie Pippen,
Steve Smith, or was that?
I think Steve Smith was on that team. Damon Stoudemire. That was a pretty good team.
Yeah, I like that team. And then, oh man, team injury. B. Roy, Odin. Who else was it?
Definitely had some bad luck.
It was just them two.
Some of their best drafted players.
And then LaMarcus. Right, that was them 3. Oh man, that would have been a good team. Oh yeah, I saw something recently saying that those 3 guys played 70 games together only in like 3 to 4 years or something.
Aldridge, Roy, and Greg Oden.
Yeah, mainly because of Odin and especially Odin, but then because of Roy too. And I think
Well,
they
I
went
wanted to ask you something. If the Heat do get Dame Lillard, where do you kind of
like
see him in the landscape of the
when
East? Because, yeah,
when
I think it is a when, not if. I'll agree with you there. It's just a matter of when, not if. But I kind of see the East as pretty wide open right now. There's
yeah
not really a dominant team. I mean, the Heat were the 8th seed and they made the finals. And Milwaukee has a new coach who hasn't coached in the NBA before. Boston, we've seen them fall short numerous times. If
yep
anything, Philly's trending down. So it seems like the East is pretty wide open in my mind.
yeah
So does Dame put them over the top and make them one of those 3 or 4 teams that has the best chance of winning the East again?
duh yeah I say probably second best. I say like second seed. I mean guaranteed three, like guaranteed top three. But I mean there's no guarantee they'd be the first seed, second or third. I don't think the Heat care as much about the regular season. Like it goes to show, it doesn't mean as much to be a top four seed as it used to, but it still is important. I think it is. It's nice to have home court and not have to play on the road every single goddamn series like the Heat did this last playoffs,
And
which
you
was
have to
insane.
play Milwaukee from the jump. I mean,
And also play Milwaukee and Boston. So it's like if you're the 1 seed, 2 seed, then like you could avoid one of those teams. You know what I mean? Like um, that. Yeah. So I think Milwaukee's still like going to be a top team. Like they didn't do much, and they're getting older. And did they lose anybody significant? I don't know if they have. But I know they lost. No, they already lost DiVincenzo. He went to the Warriors, and then now he's on the Knicks. But I mean, they haven't really added anybody that I know of, and Middleton and Drew Holiday are getting a little bit older, obviously, and Giannis is going to be.
Middleton is not what he was maybe even in 2021 even.
Yeah, I said that like the knee injury stuff is kind of. He's still great, obviously, but it's kind of slowing him down a little bit. But yeah, Giannis is going to be like have a vendetta. Like obviously got hurt again in the playoffs and lost in the first round to the Heat and lost to them twice now in the last 4 years, right? So when they were way worse seeds, the Heat were like the 5 seed in the AC when they beat them, and they're the 1 seed both times. So yeah, I mean, I think just the Milwaukee Bucks and Celtics obviously are the two teams to worry about technically at this point, but I think the Celtics are worse, in my opinion. Not much worse, but like, can we trust Porzingis? In my
He's already
opinion,
injured.
yeah, he's already injured. He's always injured. He's a good player, but like he's always injured. Has he played in the playoffs yet? I don't think so, right? I don't think did he make it with Luka in Dallas?
Probably with Dallas.
I don't even know if he did. I don't know if he was on the team yet. Maybe once. Doesn't have.
He might have played in the bubble. I feel like he played in the bubble playoffs with
Okay, maybe.
Luka.
Either way, he doesn't have much playoff experience. He's a twig. Like the depth of the team is not there anymore. I don't think losing Marcus Smart, I think, is huge, especially when it comes to the playoffs. I mean, Derek White's fine, Brogdon's fine, but Brogdon's injury prone also now. Like he's been injured throughout his entire career. Like even when he like in his second year, third year, he was getting injured, right? And so he's only getting older as well. So those are the only two teams that I would be worried about, I think. I mean, Sixers are going to be in shambles once Harden leaves, right? Like they still be like a playoff team, but like I don't see them as a top 3 team anymore. The Knicks didn't do much. They added DiVincenzo. They're still trash. I mean, I love Jalen Brunson. Honestly, I like him. He's good, but like, how much better is he going to get? Is he going to average 30 a game? No. Julius Randle is trash. Like, literally, doesn't show up in the playoffs every single year. He's like James Harden light. Not as trashy as James in the playoffs because James is the biggest choke artist. But Julius Randle doesn't show up. Nets, Mikal Bridges is your best player. Okay, like cool. You have some good players like Claxton and like Cam Johnson and whoever. But like, okay, you're like an 8th seed. You're like a 7th seed max. Like, who else is there in these? Like, there's no one there to compete with us. If we get Dame, Dame's the perfect fit for this team. Honestly, I think. I mean, having him with Jimmy and Bam, like, who are defensive anchors, who are also good playmakers but don't need the ball in their hands. I think having Jimmy free up and Bam free up with all the gravity that Damian Lillard is going to be able to attract and pull. And like pick and roll game is going to be a lot better. I think he's a better playmaker than even Kyle Lowry. Not just based off assists, but I just think Dame's a better point guard than Kyle Lowry, right? So I think he's going to put Bam in better spots. He's going to open up the floor for him and Jimmy so they can both operate. They both obviously, like to play back to the basket and bounce off face up game. I don't know. So I think the Heat will be a favorite in the East, of course. How can they not be when you're?
How does that impression change if they kind of go with what they have right now? Because it seems like they could use a little bit of depth. They lost like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. Did they lose anybody else?
No, they gained Thomas Bryant and who else did we get? Oh, Josh Richardson. We signed him again. He was on. Remember, we drafted him. He was a former Heat player that came back, and he's gonna like be our starting probably shooting guard at this rate. If we trade Tyler Hero,
so they'd probably be in the tier with like maybe Cleveland, New York, and Philly without Dame, and they have the best coach and combination of best player out of that 4-team set.
Yeah. I still think they'd probably be like 4 seed at best, and somewhere between 4 and 6. If they run it back, because they did lose some role players, but like they were both our starters, so that's tough. But I think our front court got better with Thomas Bryant. I think it was a good pickup. Orlando Robinson from
Fresno
got a standard contract, and so I think he's going to improve. Kevin Love re-signed, so he played 20 regular season games with us, so he's going to have the full training camp, and
good addition at the end of the season.
Yeah, he showed that he still has some stuff in the tank. So like we were undersized, and that was huge for us. I guess in the regular season, which cost us lots of games, was like weren't able to rebound and like really undersized. So adding those folks, and then if we don't trade for Dame, we're gonna play Jovic, who's on the Serbian. I always get confused with Slovenia, but he's on the Serbian national team playing in FIBA. I think he's a leading scorer. He's only 20 years old. He didn't play much at all last year. He played like 10, 15 games. So he's 6'11". He can shoot. He could dribble. So like he's a good prospect. So he'll get a lot of playing time if we don't trade him. So like adding him in the mix, and then Jaime Jaquez, like obviously 4-year player from UCLA. Good, like he's a good ready now type of player, like for the Heat, like someone who's like
Heat culture will be great for Jovic and Jaquez.
Yeah, so I mean, like adding those guys
to make a mark.
Yeah, adding those guys is like a step up. I think they might be slightly better, but like it's about chemistry, I guess. Because like adding Josh Richardson back, I think is good because he's a good 2-way player. Adding Thomas Bryant's good because he's like a good rebounder and like back to the basket type of traditional center. Bam is obviously more of technically a 4, but he's way more versatile. So. I think I don't want to run it back, honestly, but I think they'd like be like a 4 to 6 seed, and like they could technically contend if those players gel, because I think that's better depth than they had last year.
But if you trade for Dame, you're pretty much opening yourself up to maybe like a 2-year window where you got to get that title, you think?
Oh yeah, him and Jimmy are both 33. They probably got like 2 solid prime years left, just because they're like both aging pretty well. Like they don't like Jimmy's athletic, but he's not that athletic. He never was.
He doesn't really need his athletic. He's more like savvy and surgical.
Exactly. So I think it's like a 2-year window, I would say.
But it would be worth it because the East doesn't look very overwhelming right now.
No, the West is
combination of combination of Spoelstra. You already got a clutch performer in Butler, and then you add Dame into that mix. I think you would have to probably take the Heat in a playoff series over anybody in the East at that point.
I mean, I would take him over Denver. I mean, honestly, like as long as the chemistry works and they're lucky that they don't get hurt. I mean, how many injuries have derailed teams from winning in the playoffs, like over the past 5-7 years.
It happens pretty much every year, it seems like.
Every year, Giannis, Kawhi landing on Pachulia's ankle, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, like their ACLs and Achilles, like Kyrie and Love again, right on the Cavs, like Tyler Hero breaking his hand. Like, I mean, we lacked score. Like that Heat Nuggets series was like a 90s series. Like the average was like 98 points per game. It was like, right, like both teams were scoring like in the 90s. Like it would have been nice to have a guy who could score 20 points per game. You know what I mean? Like, and not have to rely on those undrafted guys who are still good, obviously role players, but they're undrafted for a reason. Like Spoelstra turned fool's gold into gold, but not every day. Max Strus and Gabe Vincent were not gold every day. Like they have
They got paid for their playoff run.
Yeah, but even in the playoff run, they had shitty games. Max Strus disappeared in the finals.
In the finals,
he literally played his worst basketball of the year. So I'm saying, like, I rather have, like, again, that Damian Lillard
a known quantity,
and like we got that far against Denver, who was a better team, and imagine if we have a Damian Lillard. Like, even imagine if we had a Tyler Hero. Like I said, like Tyler Hero, he was getting a lot of slack, like saying, "Oh, they're so much better without him. Look how far they got." But I'm like, I'd still take a Tyler Hero over Max Strus or a Gabe Vincent any day of the week. He averaged 20 points per game 2 years in a row, and that's not that easy. When if you look at his like shot attempts, he's taken like 13, 14 per game. That's like pretty damn good. Like Jimmy and Bam still demand and command the ball, right? Like he, as a sixth man, he like had his best year because he didn't have to play with Bam and Jimmy. Like he was the guy out there, like the number one option, right? So it's like it's a little clunky when he's on the court. Like he doesn't know what to do because he needs the ball in his hands too, right? But so does Jimmy, so does Bam. So, but I mean, the Heat were that close without Tyler Hero, even though they lost 4-1. There was, I forgot what game it was, game 3 in Miami. Like the Heat could have won a game or should have won a game. Like it was really close. Like they had three of those 5 games were pretty close, right? It wasn't like Denver just blew us out every game and we just stole one game. So like add a Damian Lillard into that mix and give Jimmy Butler some goddamn help where he didn't have to do everything, right? A guy who could average 33 points a game still. Like Damian Lillard has best points per game last season. It was 32 points per game, not 33, but close enough. Like insane, right? Like Jimmy would be like, "Oh, go freaking shoot from half court. Go get some buckets for us. Take it to the rack." Like,
and you have to think getting traded to Miami, where he's like an instant contender, he's going to get a fire back. I feel like in Portland, he was probably just running through the motions at times because he knew that the franchise wasn't going anywhere.
Exactly. So yeah, what do you think if that happens?
It's a when, not if. I think you're absolutely right.
No, would they contend, like, or do you think they would be able to win it all?
Yeah, so I'm going to go against Denver repeating. I just don't think they are that good to repeat. I mean, the Warriors in all their time as a dynasty, they repeated once. So it's really hard to repeat. So I don't think Denver. I would pick against Denver repeating, even though they have Jokic and Murray looks as healthy as he was before the injuries. So that leaves an opening. I think the Heat would clearly be the best combination of coach and best player in the East. So I would have to give them the edge to make it to the finals. And then out West, who do you think is the second best team in the West? Because I'm going to say Denver doesn't make the finals this year.
Second best team? Definitely not Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't think Phoenix has enough juice to get there again.
I'm going to say OKC. Let's see. I don't know. Is it Warriors? Is it Lakers if they can? This obviously not because they're not going to be able to stay healthy. But I was going to say, is it the Lakers if? And I cut myself off because there's impossible if they stay healthy. Like Anthony Davis, there's no chance because Anthony Davis is always going to miss like 20 games, and LeBron's old, so like there's going to be load management, and like also he's been getting like he's a freak of nature, like blessed where he's never really had like anything major, right? Maybe like one season he missed like
Yeah.
4 games or so, whatever that was. But that was like age 34 season too, right? That was like 4 or 5 years ago. So like he's gonna miss games too, like at least 15 games or something, I would assume. So because of that, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, it's just like so open too there. Like there's so many
Yeah,
teams.
the NBA generally speaking is wide open right now. You know about the Lakers, they're probably going to do what they did last year, play with their food until the trade deadline. They're going to realize that there's a sense of urgency in the final 30, 40 games. They'll probably sneak in as maybe a 5 or 6 seed, and then they'll be dangerous as hell in the playoffs.
Yeah. Who do you think is the second best team? I guess we're obviously saying Denver then, right? So they'll.
Yeah, I think you have to put Denver one. I just don't see them winning the West in back-to-back years. I just think it's way too difficult. I think by default, I would have to say the Warriors, I think.
Yeah.
I think the Warriors are probably the second because Steph is still up there. They brought back Draymond. Clay is hit or miss, but I just think they have like the pedigree in place because you can't put Phoenix there. They don't have enough depth. I don't think that the Lakers are going to be the fully formed version of themselves until April. So you don't know what you're getting. The Clippers, I mean, no way.
Injuries. Same thing, injuries.
Yeah. So I think just by process of elimination, I'd have to probably go with the Warriors.
What about Memphis? If Ja, how many games? Actually, no, because he's suspended. Holy shit! I forgot that's next season. How many?
Have they announced his suspension yet? Or
I thought they did. Wasn't it like how many games was it? Like
maybe like 20 games. I don't know. I'm gonna check right now.
What do you think about them getting Marcus Smart, dude? Ja, Smart.
25. He got 25.
Ooh, but dude, oh, they don't have Tyus anymore. Tyus is on the Wizards now because Tyus, when they played better sometimes. Remember when they had Tyus in instead of
He's
him?
a great backup point guard.
What? Anyway, 25, fine. That's a lot. But like, what do you think about him, Marcus Smart, dude?
He's a good pickup. He's a good pickup for Memphis, especially given the suspension.
Players of the year, right? They have the last 2 defensive players of the year: JJJ, Triple J, and him.
Yeah. The thing is, Desmond Bane kind of balled out last year. I'm wondering if he's that good.
I don't think he's that good. And he got the bag too, which is insane. He got like an insane deal, but he could be the real deal. I forgot about him too. So I mean, dude, Jaw's out for a little bit, but you got Smart, you got Bane, you got Triple J. That's not.
They're not gonna. They're gonna make the playoffs proper. They're a top 6 team, I think, for sure. But if we're saying like the second best team in the West, it's hard to get there. It's hard to get there over the Lakers or even and of course the Warriors, I would say.
What are your thoughts?
What about Sacramento? Sacramento is going to be very interesting to watch. Like they got to the 3 seed last year, but yeah, defending that growth that they made is going to be extremely difficult.
Do you know why they made the 3 seed? I just heard this on other podcasts.
Because the Lakers didn't care about the regular season. The Warriors didn't really care about the regular season. Phoenix.
Nope.
Why did they get the 3 seed?
I think they're the most healthy team in the NBA.
So that's going to bounce back to league average.
Yep, and it does. I think that drops them to like 5 seed automatically. I think literally they're the most healthy team in the entire NBA. So like they never had to deal with their stars, De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis. Like didn't.
They got the target on their back now. People know like when the Kings are on the schedule, they don't have to. They're gonna have to lock in because that's actually a good team. Whereas probably last year they're like, oh, it's the Kings. Like we don't have to lock in today.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a big thing. And I don't want to use injuries as an excuse, but do you know where the Heat ranked in that?
No idea. Probably in the 20s.
3rd most injured team in the regular.
28th.
3rd most. So that makes sense why they kind of lost a lot of games also throughout the year, and they're the 7th and 8th seed. It didn't show in the playoffs, but they were healthy, and minus Tyler Hero obviously breaking his hand in game 1 of the first round. But it kind of shows that like, oh, hey, like they have their players, they have their depth, right? So Coach Spo has all of his pawns and pieces, at his disposal. So, and he didn't during the regular season. So, I mean, they played horrible last season. That was a horrendous season.
It'll be interesting to see who the diamonds in the rough are for the Heat this year.
Depends on which team it is. If it's Dame, we're going to be gutted a little more. So it's going to be a different team, right? We're going to have to get some minimum contract dudes. But all right, last question for you before we head out. We're at 45 minutes. So prediction for the finals next year without Dame, just as is right now, just in the NBA. And then who do you think is going to win it all?
That is a good question. Because even just talking about the season still 2 months away and trying to come up with a top 5 East, top 5 West, pretty damn difficult, if you ask me right now, because everything looks wide open. But in the West, I'm not going to be picking the Nuggets to make it back there. So that's the first thing that I will say. I think, let's see. I'm going to go with the Warriors again. I think they have a bounce back year. I'm going to pick them in the finals against Milwaukee, and I will take Milwaukee to win right now. What about you?
That's okay. Well, I got to change mine. You literally have the same thing as me.
That was your pick?
Both to a T. I think
it's so wide open. There's not a lot of separation between these teams.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know in the West. Like, I think Milwaukee's the easier choice in the East to say, as is, because if Giannis is healthy, even if Giannis was healthy, I don't know if they were gonna beat the Heat, because like he didn't miss the whole series, and like the Heat were winning before he got hurt.
The Heat were on fire offensively, even when Giannis was playing.
Yeah,
they were on one from deep.
100%. So yeah, I was gonna say Milwaukee. I don't know. I was like, in the West, it's too hard. I was gonna say Warriors or Nuggets. I just didn't think the Nuggets were that good outside of.
It's so hard to repeat. I mean,
well, it doesn't mean they can't get there again. I mean, the Heat went. I mean, different team, obviously the big three, but they went 4 times in a row, but they only won 2 out of 4. So it doesn't mean they can't get back. I don't think they're that good, dude. Like, they were playing. Jimmy Butler was hurt. Like, I know he was playing in the playoffs, but like he fucked up his ankle really badly in that second round.
Was it New York?
Yes, and like they didn't want to use excuses, but like in the regular season, he would have missed 4 weeks, like 5 weeks. Like he would have sat out like a month. He like really sprained his ankle, and you could see after that game, like he had a game or so in that series where he was Jimmy. In the Boston series, like he had like 2 or 3 games out of the 7 where he was Jimmy, and against Denver, he had like 1 or so. But like, think of Jimmy last playoffs as well. Like he got banged up and missed a couple games too last year. But like, how amazing was playoff Jimmy last year? How amazing was playoff Jimmy against the Bucks? He had 56 points in one game. He had 42 points in another game, the closeout game. Like, he was unreal until he got hurt. Like, you saw the way his ankle got twisted. So I think, and then we had no Tyler Hero. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, anyway, like injuries are huge. And Giannis was hurt last year. So like, if he was at 100%, who knows? But like, they just don't match up well with the Heat as well, like for some reason. So like matchups are also important. So I don't know, Bucks. But then, okay, sorry, going back to the Nuggets. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The reason why I was saying that is because Jimmy was banged up. We had no Tyler Hero, right? And the Denver Nuggets, they beat us. They're a better team because of Jokic. Like Jokic was unbelievable. Murray was pretty damn good, but not as good as he was like in the other rounds. And the other players were whatever. Like Aaron Gordon, like played well because Gabe Vincent was guarding him. Like the undersized stuff I told you about earlier, right? Not being able to rebound. Like there's times where Gabe Vincent was guarding a 6'10" power forward or 6'8" power forward. Like, you know what I mean? So like they were taking advantage of matchups and stuff. And he's not that great. Like he had a couple good games, but I don't think he's that great. I don't think Porter's that great. Like they lost Brown, like who had some freaking ridiculous miracle games where you had like 22 points and
a big 6 man for them.
Yeah. Like that's not sustainable. They just got hot at the right time, you know? Yeah, I don't know. But I think I've just to change up my pick, I'll say it's Denver and Bucks, and I think it's the Bucks.
It's very wide open. I think that's kind of the moral of the story. And getting Dame Lillard on board would give the Heat the best trio in the league.
100%.
So it'll be worth watching for sure.
I'm excited. All right. Well, to end it, Neil, the latest report that I talked about a couple days ago for Damian Lillard said the Blazers still have no interest in dealing with the Heat right now. So that's the latest during the summer. All the GMs are on vacation still. Nothing's going on. I understand that it's a waiting game right now. It's just a holding pattern, as you mentioned. Nothing's going to change, and I'm not worried until like end of September. If it gets to training camp and he's not on the team, then you should be worried. That's not till September 20th or so. So we still have like about a month. About a month. There's no rush right now. It's like if it's going to happen, I think it's going to be then. If not, then Portland's going to be stupid enough to keep him for all the reasons why I think he's like the team would be stupid to keep him.
So before the season, that's your expectation.
Yeah, like if they want to hold him out to the trade deadline, that's fine. Like you're going to risk injury, stunting the growth of the team. Like that's fine. Like if you want to wait and see if he changes his mind, I don't think he will. I think Dame will just get more pissed because he requested a trade. And he's gonna if he starts pulling a Harden, then like why would you want him on your team at this point, right? So anyway, thanks you guys for watching. We're at the 51-minute mark, so thanks for joining, Neil. Hopefully we can do another one.
It's been fun. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. All right, thanks guys. Bye.